Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, that is Tim, and we talk about horror movies. And we are it's funny, this should be the culmination of what has been about a year-long sort of journey, because it was about this time last year where we started the Japanese Ring movies, and then we went on to the American Ring movies, then we went on to the Japanese Grudge movies, and then we did the American ones. We did Grudge 3 earlier this week to round those up. And we knew it was because we were getting to Sadako versus Kayako, which is what we're talking about today, which is the Versus movie from Japan. Unfortunately, the third American Ring movie, Rings, was delayed till this week, end of this week. We're doing that next week. The next week's movie is another Rings movie because it's out. But that still feels like the culmination in a weird way because we've been kind of building to it for the last year and done all the mainline movies. We haven't done all the Ju-on spin-offs that they've got. But
it's almost like the first Avengers movie. You know, you have all these movies culminating in this big summer event.
That's exactly what I was thinking as I was watching this. This is just like the Avengers, is what this is. It's the Avengers of Japanese long-haired girl ghosts, is what it is. We all start spoiler-free, as we tend to do, and we will warn you about spoilers before we go into them about halfway through. So yeah, so the plot, girls find tape and watch tape, worry about curse. Meanwhile, teenage girl is obsessed, moves across the road from the house, the Grudge house, is kind of obsessed with it and ends up going in at some point, and then eventually mystical people come in and say, I know how we can solve this, we'll pit them against each other, and that's the plot. That's the movie. Tim, did you like Sadako versus Kayako? Dawn of Justice.
I absolutely loved this movie. It was, yeah, like we had both been looking forward to it for a really long time, but I honestly wasn't really exactly sure what to expect. Like, well, I mean, I guess in a way I thought it was going to be crazy, but I don't think I thought it was going to be this crazy. And it's not, it might not be like the most deep movie, it might not be like, the creepiest, but if you like just really like crazy, like, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing this kind of shit, like it won me over on every level. Like if you're looking for that kind of stuff.
I kind of liked it. I mean, I didn't love it. I liked parts of it. I liked the insanity, which seems to be the thing that's won you over the most part. It's not a good movie though. Like, I'm saying that now. Right. It's not a good movie. It is a movie you watch because it's silly. I think when we first seen the trailer, I said this looks like a glorious train wreck, and that's kind of what I was hoping for, and that's kind of what it is.
Like, I would say it's fun. Like, yeah,
it's fun. Yeah, it's upbeat enough, and it keeps moving quick enough. It doesn't slow down too much, and because of that, I think it's because it's basically a Ring movie and a Grudge movie like mixed together. So each one's like half length, so they had to like just make it a lot more punchy to get through them both at the same time. And as a result of that, it keeps moving, and it never feels like it slows down too much. That said, the big criticism I would give against it though is that it isn't scary at all, and like, especially if you're comparing it to like the other Grudge movies, the actual scares with the Kayako and Toshio are nowhere near as good. They just kind of are there in the background, and the camera will just like zoom into them or whatever, and it's not like the other movies. So that said though,
the other movies had like a general sense of like creepiness and was very like atmospheric, and it's kind of lost.
It was brooding, yeah, it was very brooding. It was slow build, whereas here's they kind of don't have the slow build. That said though, it's probably still easily the best Ring/Grudge movie since the originals in both series.
Oh, certainly.
Actually, well, no, I wouldn't say it's better than the American Grudge, so that's like a weird one.
If you're counting the American ones.
But certainly in their own like Japanese series, it's definitely the best one since the first of both. Not to say it's good, again, it's just fun. It's kind of silly and it's goofy. I do have some complaints though. My biggest, this shouldn't have bothered me as much as it did, but it kind of did, is they changed some things about, especially the Ring, they changed some of the mythology for some reason, and I don't get it.
Yeah, that was very strange, and I didn't do a ton of research, but I did like try to go on the Wikipedia page afterwards and stuff to see if they mentioned that at all, but they didn't. But like,
I'm almost tempted to think that it was a legal reason. Like
that,
like they got the rights to use the name Sadako and have the cursed videotape, but they weren't allowed to use some of the details because the actual video, the video they watch, which has been even the American version, it was almost the same as the Japanese version, and all the sequels, is completely different.
very different.
They turn on the video and it's like there's a door and it's just some banging noises and I'm like, where's the well? You know, the reason why it was called The Ring, where's the well? Yeah. Where's all these other bits that were usually there? And all of it's gone.
Yeah, they changed like the number of days. Like it went from being you had 7 days.
Yeah, to 2.
Until you died to 2. Which,
see, that's the one where I could almost maybe think, okay, maybe they made that choice because they wanted it to be quicker, so it was more impending. Like, we have to get through so many people dying. Sense. So maybe that one would just be a creative choice, but the other ones feel really weird, especially the way they most of the sort of deaths we see as a result of Sadako feel different as well. They seem to bring in this idea that she makes you commit suicide.
Yeah.
Which is, again, different from everything else. So the first half of the movie, this was really, like, because at first I thought, because one of the characters went, the two main girls who deal with the ring side of the plot, Yuri and Natsumi, they're in like a college class with this sort of urban legend professor, and he like goes through all these myths, and he's like, oh, you've heard of this one, you've heard this one. He mentions the cursed house. He's like, oh, you've heard of the cursed videotape. And he talks about the videotape, and he says the 2-day rule, and he says the other stuff. And I was thinking, oh, maybe he's just got it wrong. Like, maybe this is the myth has just been meshed, and they've got it wrong. But then the rest of the movie plays out, no, it's exactly what he said. Yeah. And that was kind of weird.
One theory that I had is, I do think that there is a movie just called Sadako. Which I remember is on Netflix for a while, and I think I watched like maybe 20 or so minutes of it, and it's absolutely horrible. But yeah, I was wondering again if it was like maybe some type of legal issue where, you know, technically they couldn't do The Ring, but oh, there's this movie Sadako we can do, you know what I mean? Or if there was like a later sequel or something that we hadn't seen that was different.
Do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of how Superman, they ended up keeping the rights and they worked it all out, but there was a time when DC might have lost Superman's rights, but they wouldn't lose the rights to everything about him. They would lose the rights to certain things. Like certain elements of his character were like belonged to like the Siegel estate or whatever, the Schuster estate. And I'm wondering if it's like that with The Ring, where like someone owned the rights to what was on the tape and they owned the rights to the rules, but the company still owned the rights to the idea of the tape and the phone call. And you know, I'm wondering if it's something like that, because it felt like, okay, it's kind of her. It looks like her. The other thing that bothered me in terms of changes from the other movies, the kid they've got playing Toshio is like 5 years too old. Was that just me?
Yeah, he seemed really old, and he really wasn't in the movie like that much. Not
a super amount, no, but he's supposed to be like 5.
Yeah.
And he was like 12.
Yeah.
it was really distracting. And it's not even like you can say, well, they wanted to keep the same actor. No, the actor who played Toshio in the original Grudge is like 30 now, so it's not him. I'm exaggerating, of course. He's younger than me, probably, but still, he's an adult.
That would have been hilarious. Like, to see like a 25-year-old Toshio just still in like a diaper or whatever.
Yeah, and the movie like tries to explain, he still ages even though he's a ghost.
Yeah.
So there was that. So basically the way the movie plays out, I would say it's more of a Ring movie than a Grudge movie for the most part.
Yeah, the Grudge is very like last minute, which as more of a Grudge fan than a Ring fan, I was a little disappointed in that because you get little glimpses and stuff, but it's a lot more Ring stuff towards the beginning. It's
more Ring stuff towards the start, and that kind of makes sense to me because I feel like there's more you can do with the plot, because you've got the tape and you've got like, oh, we found the tape and the rules and all the rest of it. And the Grudge stuff is like a subplot. The teenage girls moved across the road. Suzuki, Suzuka. She moved across the road and she's like seeing the house. She's hearing rumors from school, and we see like these kids like going to the house and stuff. And it's just sort of, it's a subplot throughout. And it was actually kind of funny because when they eventually get to the point where they're like, oh, let's pit the ghosts against each other, I actually had this thought that and I think this would genuinely improve the movie. What if, Tim, they didn't call this Sadako versus Kayako? What if this was just called Ring 4 or whatever, right? What if this was just a new Ring movie, and that's how they played it? And we took out all the subplot of the girl across the road from the Grudge house, and it's just a Ring movie. And then someone says, I've got an idea for us how we can defeat the curse, how we can take care of Sadako. And then we just see them arrive at the house, and it'd be like a twist. It'd be like a surprise. Oh shit, they're going to use the Kayako from the Grudge to fight her.
Yeah.
Like, and
that would be cool. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that would necessarily be better than the idea of just having a straight V's, but because the movie is a bit more towards the Ring side, I almost wish it just went more like that and just made that a surprise at the end. It's like, oh crap, it's gonna, it'd be exciting. I think. I don't know. It was just something I was thinking as I was watching.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
So before we get to spoilers, I don't want to go into the plot too much until we get to spoilers. So what will I say? I think the acting's hard to judge when you're not a native speaker of the language. It did seem a little bit over the top in places. There's some effects that are quite silly, some of which I really appreciated, some of which I thought were just silly.
I know what you're talking about. One in particular.
There's two in particular, I think.
Okay, well, there's one especially where I rewound it like once or twice to be like,
so did I.
Is what's happening? Is what I think is happening actually happening?
There was a bit in the middle that I'd rewound to see what was happening again, because I was like, no, that's not right. What just happened? I went back and checked. So yeah, the acting's okay for what it is. It definitely does get silly. The spiritual guy they bring in, he like just waves his hand around and makes things happen, and it's just like, yeah, just accept this. Sure, why not?
Like at that point, I was so on board with like the craziness, and he is such a like big bombastic element. I absolutely loved him. Like it would not work in probably like 90% of most other movies that we watch, but like in terms of this, I thought it was a nice addition. And I kept wondering too, like, is this guy from another franchise or something? Because he seems like well established, like.
You think if this is like, do you know when we're talking about doing like Freddy vs Jason versus Ash? This is like the Ash from another Japanese franchise.
Because like he even has like a sidekick and stuff that they never explain. Then I'm like, oh, you're supposed to.
He's got this little girl who's like, I don't know, 12 or something, and she's blind, but she's like a psychic. She can sense like evil and stuff. Yeah, and they're like a ghost busting duo.
So there's a lot about this movie I would be really interested to learn more about, to see if there's just stuff we're missing, just because of not being in Japan and stuff. Like I know I'd like to know more about all the legal stuff and this character, just to see if there's a bigger backstory to it than we might not be aware of.
I can also completely buy it's just crazy Japanese writing where they've just put this character in. I can buy that just as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't be like completely surprised if that was the case.
The other problem I might have with the movie is I think the ending's really weird and abrupt.
Yeah.
I would say that
I for sure wasn't expecting it.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with what happens at the end, and I'll talk about that in spoilers. It's just the way it just cuts to credits. It felt like, oh, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
All right, that was the cliffhanger. Okay. But I can't deny I had fun. Like I was never bored. I was constantly into what was going on, even if it was getting silly. And maybe the actual versus part where they're kind of fighting.
Yeah.
I think maybe that could have been a bit longer. It felt like it was over a little bit quickly. But again, I can't deny I had fun. I was constantly entertained. I don't think it's a good movie, but I think if you like these characters and you don't mind a bit of silly, you probably will have a decent time watching this. It's definitely something I'd say is worth grabbing a subscription to Shudder and just giving it a watch. It's not
definitely.
It's a easygoing, fun 100 minutes.
Yeah, if you have
just don't expect a game-changing, proper scary movie, because it's not. It's silly, goofy. It's basically the equivalent of a kid with two action figures like bashing them together, but with a camera.
and I thought it was actually like it reminded me of Freddy versus Jason in a couple of ways. Just like just in the fact that that definitely is not a good movie either, but I can't deny that I have fun like when I watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, at least that one benefited though. It didn't have to completely alter some of the backstory elements. I mean, there was a couple of things they put in there that felt like they just shoved them in so that they could give them a weakness. It's like,
Sure.
all of a sudden, Jason's scared of water. Sure, that's never been a thing, but
I still think about that one line in the movie where the girl just like wakes up from her dream and she's like, "Hey, wait a minute, Freddy died by fire and Jason died by water. Can we use that?" And then like it never like comes up.
Oh god, I'm still pissed that the line from the trailer, Freddy vs Jason, place your bets, was taken out of the movie.
Oh yeah.
It's not in the movie, it's in the trailer, and I'm just like, god damn it, that was like that was your money shot. Well, not money shot, but money line. But anyway, yeah, I think we need to go into spoilers now to talk about it any more in depth. But silly, goofy, not a good movie, but an easy to watch, fun one. But like I say, you might, much like me, you might have a couple of problems early on, like, oh, why is this different from the other movies? Why is the tape different? Why is the rules different?
Yeah.
I feel like the Grudge get less bastardized in that sense, except Toshio looking far too old. Otherwise, it seemed to play out like it should. With the exception of, and this is something that Alien vs Predator did as well. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, along with the 2-day rule instead of 7 days, even Kayako feels that she kills people way quicker.
Oh
like,
yeah.
They're in the house for like 5 minutes and it's like dead. Whereas in all the old movies, it was like, oh, you've been in the house, you go home, you're fine for a couple of days, you start to notice creepy stuff, and then eventually, Alien vs Predator did that, you know, because originally in the Alien, it was like, the facehugger was on for like a day and a half, and then it was like another day or whatever before the chestburster. Alien vs Predator, no, facehugger on, chestburster within 20 minutes. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's also like a little bit of weirdness with like the fact that like the house was kind of like luring the girl there, you know, which I feel like before never, like, people would just go in there of their own, like, you know, free will, or they would have a reason to go there, while this like, but it's, I mean, I feel like that's not like that big of a stretch to think that this house could do that, you know. To
be fair, it only lures the main girl. Everyone else who goes in isn't drawn to it. I think True, it's maybe more to do with the girl having like a weird thing than the house.
That's what I thought. Maybe she has some like psychic abilities that she's drawn to it or something. Who knows?
Yeah, I'd make a guess for that. I think that's actually one thing that did bother me though is the house is clearly different. And inside, the thing that really bothered me is because not that I expect the house to be identical, because I wouldn't remember if it was a little bit different. But the one thing that I do remember about that house that's really not unique but really identifiable was the staircase. The way it kind of wrapped round and came down. Yeah, in this movie, it's just a straight staircase going up the middle like a traditional house.
Yeah.
And it's completely different. And it sticks out to me, though, because it was such an iconic moment at the end of that first movie when she crawls down the stairs and it's like wrapping around the... It goes it sort of wraps around and goes up to the second floor.
Yeah, there's also... I have some logistic problems with some of the locations, but we'll kind of get to that in spoilers.
Sure. Although I have no doubt that people who live in Japan and know the geography are probably like, wait a minute, these are supposed to be on opposite sides of the country. How are they getting to there in like a day? This is stupid. But yeah. Alright, let's get into some spoilers then, so we can actually talk about plot. So full spoilers from this point on for Sadako versus Kayako, Dawn of Revengeness.
Dawn of Curse of Justice, I don't know.
Curse of Justice. Oh. Hey, it's the better versus movie of 2016, I'll tell you that right now.
Oh, sure.
Oh dear. Okay, I want to point, again, it's silly you sort of go with it, but I do want to point out some really stupid coincidences. Now, I like that they bring up, okay, it's 2016 in the movie, no one uses VHS tapes anymore, so they bring up this idea that the two girls, one of them has to transfer an old VHS home movie of her parents' wedding to... transfer it to DVD, so they need to get a VCR to do that. So they go to this, old, used store where they can buy all this old junk, and they find a VCR. And I love that Nasumi is like, "Oh, don't want to touch it. It's disgusting. Don't touch me with this awful VHS." And as someone whose VHS looks like shit now, that amused me greatly. I was like, because she just said it because it's dirty, but I was sort of in my head rewriting the scenes like, no, don't touch me with this filthy standard definition out of date format. How dare you?
If you're gonna watch like a cursed video, it should at least be in HD.
Exactly. If it's not in 1080p, you can just go away.
But I do think this is actually like a pretty good, like, if you were gonna do a new Ring movie in this day and age, this would actually be like a pretty good way to get the videotape and stuff.
And so the tape just happens to be inside the machine. Again, I'm fine with that. The only problem I have with this though, these two girls just attended a class in which they were told about this cursed videotape. The coincidence of this is off the charts.
I would just say real quick, when they were showing them in class, first of all, I was really happy when he was naming like all the different legends and stuff, because actually last year I just bought like a book about different Japanese ghosts and urban legends and stuff, and I was like, oh, I recognize that. Oh, these are all like real things that I know.
Oh, that's cool.
And then also, yeah, like after, you know, the professor like said like 2 lines, and I was instantly like, I want to take this class. I know it's not real, but I wish I was taking this class.
Hey, no, there probably is a mythology class or something that goes into urban legends. I think there is.
Well, I mean, I want like this teacher.
All right.
Like I want. But yeah, I was very interested in that stuff right away.
Yeah, so that was very coincidental, and then they put the tape in, and the one girl watched, the other one's too busy looking at her phone. Which, by the way, I'm glad to see that the whole phone call thing now works with smartphones. Because it occurred to me as I was watching it, when they last made these movies, smartphones weren't a thing.
Yeah.
Mobile phones were practically not even that popular yet. Obviously, the American ones it was, but I mean, the Japanese ones, like the first one was 1998. That was before most people had cell phones. So, nah. So it's nice to see that.
what if like they did it when like beepers were big, and like Sadako just beeps you.
Oh dear. So. Yeah, so she's cursed. They worry. They go back to the store and find out that the girl who works at the store who watched it died already. And
yeah, you want to talk about exposition? Like, that girl just starts like going into this long like, oh, I sold that VCR with that weird tape that I watched the other day. Like she's like on and on and on. Like,
talk about clunky and coincidental scenes. She explains that she sold the tape. She then explains she watched it 2 days ago, and then she. In the same scene, this isn't like it cuts to a later scene. In the same scene, she disappears, and then we see her up at the top of the store, like on the rafters, and she like jumps and commits suicide.
Yeah. Now you'd think if she watched the tape that maybe when she sold it, she might have said something like, you know, oh, but or like put something on the sticker for it. Oh, by the way, this also comes with a tape inside that is a really weird thing that might be related to this like famous urban legend.
And I want to emphasize as well, it's like, for the rest of the scene when she's explaining all the exposition, she's not like depressed or moody, like she might just go and kill herself. She's cheery and happy. She's like, hey, I sold that tape today. Hey, that's good of me, right? She's like in a good mood. And in the same scene, she like shifts to suicidal in the blink of an eye. It's, oh dear. So they go to the professor, they try and get him to help, and he gets all excited. He watches the tape because he's all for it. And
hells yeah.
he takes them to some priestess woman that he knows to try and like get rid of the curse, and they try and like perform a ritual on Natsumi, who's the one who watched the tape. And this is when I knew the movie was getting silly, like really silly, because 2 of her henchmen who are there to help, like both one of them gets up, is possessed by Sadako, snaps the neck of the other one, and then like just sort of like puts her own head forward to the point where it completely snaps her neck, and it's almost like her at the top of her head's making a U shape because the neck's just going like that.
Yeah, I was like, at first I was like, wait, what? Like I didn't even like register like how that was possible.
And then priestess woman gets sorry, Natsumi's possessed, and the professor's like trying to like hold her and be like, come on Sadako, I want to meet Sadako, come on, I want to meet Sadako. And she headbutts him, and this was the moment I had to rewind like twice to make sure I saw what I thought I saw. When she headbutts him, his head inflates. And it goes really, it goes really wide and inflates, and he drops to the ground, and it's just a split second. Blinking, you'll miss it.
It's like it's a cartoon. Like there's no other way to describe it, but it is like Wile E. Coyote like hitting the side of the wall and just like flattening. Like
Yeah, that is exactly what it is. It is ridiculous. And it's like, okay, this is what I'm in for, right? I can readjust my expectations for the rest of the movie. This is what we're doing. Okay.
Yeah, like it had already been like kind of silly up to that point, but you still like, are kind of like, it's still taking itself somewhat seriously. And then at that point, it's like gears are completely shifted. You're like, okay, this is what we're in for.
Yeah. And they end up contacting this other guy who we mentioned with the waving hands, the sort of investigator did with the sidekick. And they come into the movie, and this is when he comes up with a plan. We'll put it against another ghoul. And I want to put out, before we move on to like the plan and what they do in the last act of the movie, I want to talk about a scene that happens in the Grudge side of the film. Right, so obviously we have the girl who's like getting kind of obsessed, and she's noticing the house. I want to talk about a scene with kids. There's like 4 boys. One boy's being kind of bullied by these other 3 kids. They're all about, I don't know, 10, something like that. 10 or so. And the 3 kids make the bullied kid go in the house. They force him to go in.
Yeah.
And the kid goes in, and they're like making fun of him. Like, oh, he actually went in, all that kind of thing. And the kid who went in decides to pick up one of the rocks that they put in his backpack, and he opens the door and throws them square in the face of one of the bullies, and he gets a bloody nose. And it's like, alright, okay, cathartic. And all the bullies decide to just go inside, even though they were terrified of going in. So they all go inside, and then all 4 kids, one by one, just get quickly killed, like immediately in the house. I don't know, I just...
It was a little strange. Like, first of all, I was kind of like a little confused as to like who was the asshole, because they like, obviously they're these 3 bully kids that are filling this other kid's backpack with rocks and stuff, but they say something like, oh, that's what you get for like being mean to me or something like that. I'm like, oh, so is this guy also kind of a jerk? And then like, yeah, forcing them to go inside and stuff is mean, but then like throwing a rock in someone's face, that's pretty like, it was a big rock.
And he does it twice. He does it again when he's in the house, and he lures them all inside, and then they all die. And the biggest thing that kind of bothers me about this scene is that it's kind of irrelevant. Nothing ever comes from it. Like, the girl at one point sees the ghost of one of the kids, but that's about it. Like, there's no follow-up, there's no context, there's no like, oh, here's their parents, they're looking for them, or kind of thing. It just happens on it's basically just an excuse to have a grudge scene in the middle somewhere, because they're like, oh, it's all been ring, we need to have a grudge scene where Kayako and Toshio kill people. They
do mention like later on, like the kids are missing, in the the girl Suzuka like says something like, oh, like maybe those are the kids I saw or something, but yeah, again, like nothing else really comes of it. It's
purely just there so they can have a grudge scene where people die. So they throw a random group of people into the house, and that's it. And it's just, so it's clunky in that respect. But yeah, let's get to the plan. So
now I do just want to mention real quick, the one thing that bothered me about the professor's death scene is that they're making a big deal talking about like how much like Sadako is holding on to this girl because like Sadako needs to fulfill its revenge thing, its curse thing or whatever, but then she doesn't have a problem killing the professor, who also watched the tape, like because she's killing him like days early. So it's like,
that's a good point.
I don't know, it's just and just something I thought like it was like a little weird.
Double standards. Sadako's got double standards. How dare she?
Also, I wish I had written it down, but the professor had like some great line that made me laugh or something, where I don't know, he mentioned something about like like, oh, like dying's okay, or like dying's not that bad as long as like I get to see Sadako or something. Like there's some line he mentioned about death that was really good, but it escapes me.
Yeah, so they really set this idea up that Sadako will protect her victims until she wants to kill them herself. Like if someone else tries to kill them, she'll intervene and deal with everyone who's trying to harm them. So the plan is, so the friend of Nasumi, Yuri, the main girl, she watched the tape, because she thought that if she gives her the tape and watches it, that fixes the curse for her. And we know from the original movie, it's actually when you make a copy of the tape, which, by the way, reminds me, there's a plot point in this movie where Natsumi, when she's going a bit crazy, copies the movie to a DVD and she uploads it to, it's not YouTube, but it's essentially the same thing. She puts it on she puts it on the internet, and this is never brought up again, really. I mean, she mentions it to the guy, but he's just kind of like, well, if we fix the curse, it'll fix it for everyone.
Yeah, which is that was also like a weird thing that's like never been brought up before. He was talking about how it's like a big chain now, and if they can like, you know, fix it for like the first person at the start of it, it'll like cure everyone.
Yeah, that just comes out of nowhere. And it's just so weird to bring this idea, because this is a big thing. You put it on the internet for like millions of people to watch, and we don't get a single scene cut into like random people at home like watching the tape on YouTube. Like, it's just weird. Like, don't do that if you're not going to do anything with it. It's weird.
Also, like, how big of an asshole are you? Like I think she said something about she did it because like if she's gonna die, like shouldn't everyone else or something like that? It's like, screw you.
So she dies, Yuri's cursed, and then by this point the girl Suzuka has been lured into the house, so she's cursed with the grudge. And so what was the guy's name? The
Kaizo.
Kaizo's the waving hands. Him and his sidekick get them together, and they're like, right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to pit them against each other. You are going to go into the house, Yuri, so you're cursed with both, and you're going to watch the tape inside the house, Suzuka, so you're cursed with both, and then we're going to let them fight.
Which is I love this idea. Like this, again, you know, it's playing off that like silly, crazy aspect, but
oh no, this is the part that works. This is the part that I'm like, you know, if you're going to do this movie where you have them both, this is what you do. You make them fight over the same person. And we also get some scenes of it, like Kaizo, they find a well out behind the Grudge house, which I'm pretty sure was never there before.
Yeah, that was like one of my like logistic problems. Like I was like, oh, like are we to believe that the Sadako's well is like basically in the backyard?
It's not her well. It's not her well. I think it's just a well.
Oh, it's just a random well. You think?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
All right.
I don't think.
Otherwise, I guess it is still weird just to have a big giant well like that anyway, but
especially when they've avoided putting it on the tape, and then they bring up another well. It's like, okay, now we have a well. And it's funny because I thought when they were going to trap them in there at the end, I thought, wait, are they going to suggest that this is actually the origin of the ring? Like, this is, and this creates the new tape? Like, is that where they go? But it doesn't make sense because they've got smartphones and stuff, so it's obviously set present day, but I don't know, I thought they might do something stupid like that. So they go in the house, and then we get Kayako shows up properly, and she's like crawling down the stairs, and Sadako's like hovering towards them, and
well, like they Kaizo like throws Sadako in there like a ghost grenade. Like,
oh, that's right. Yeah,
he has her like in this like little bag.
This is earlier. This is when they first get there, because this is when Suzuka's just went in the house. And her parents are there, because her parents come running in after her. And
right.
Kayako already kills, I think, her father, or Toshio did. And then Kayako's coming down the stairs, and the mother's like just already messed. She's already down the floor. She's a goner. And Kaizo opens the door. He's got some of Sadako's hair that they got from earlier on, and he throws it in, like you say, as a grenade. And it like wraps around Kayako's arm, and she like retreats. Like she like sort of zooms back the way. He's like, oh wait a minute, there's something else here.
Yeah.
But when they get in the house, they watch the tape in the house, and then we get them floating towards, and she's crawling towards, and they come towards each other, and then we get some really, because at first they actually have Sadako whip Kayako's ass, because her hair like kind of shoots out and tangles around her, and it makes her all kind of, and then they set up this idea you can't look at Sadako's eye, and her hair like parts, and you see the eye, and it's like the old front cover, and it makes Kayako just explode in like this black goo. It's like, oh, that was quick.
Yeah, that put me out, because I was like, oh, please don't. I hope that's not like the end.
Luckily though, it takes like a minute to come back.
Yeah. And
Kayako comes back, and they fight some more. They make their noises at each other. That's just where I'm a little bit disappointed, because I felt like, oh, there should have been more crazy stuff in the house with them fighting. But the imagery's cool for what it was.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard too, because like these aren't like monsters that like, you know, like it would be weird if they're like punching each other and stuff, you know, like
Yeah, but the movie's
that's
so
not really their MO.
but the movie's so silly that if it got to that point where they said, right, we need to do something different, and they started just throwing punches, I would have been.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
I wouldn't have been, or maybe grabbing blades or stuff. But so then this. So Kaizo's out back with the girl, and he's like, right, come outside, I've got a plan B. And he's like, one of you have to sacrifice yourself. One of you's going to have to let yourself be possessed and jump in the well, and we'll trap them both in there. That's the plan. Yeah. Why a well's going to contain them, I don't know. But he just says it would, so fine. Yeah. And so we get this glorious scene. This is the final scene of the movie, by the way. We get this scene where Yuri's standing on the well, because she's elected herself to be the one who sacrifices herself. And we have Kayako coming in from the left or the right, whatever side it was. Sadako's on the other side, and they're both flying towards her. And just as they're about to hit her, she jumps in the well, and the two ghosts hit each other. They collide. And then this is when the movie goes absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Because they create this giant CG thing. It's like a monster of flesh. And you can sort of see Sadako's eye at one point. You can see a bit of hair at another point, but it's mostly just a flesh of meat. And
kind of like reminded me a little bit of the very, very last monster in like Resident Evil 2. You know, when it's like coming after the train.
A little bit,
kind of like,
a little bit. Except it's huge. It's bigger, and it's floating in the sky. It's floating. It's floating, and pure Yuri's still down there. She stays down in the well. She doesn't get out, and. The big thing's like going in, and it's like it falls into the well, and it sucks into it, and it goes down, and then the lid shuts, and you're like, all right, is that us? And then big noise, boom, and then someone yells, quick, they're merging. So then we get a scene, like the scene ends with this new merging of Sadako and Kayako. I don't know what to call her because it's both of them now.
Yeah,
and she comes out of the well, like Sadako did in the old video, but she's crawling with her hands like Kayako.
Yeah.
So it's like a mix of both things, and she sort of walks towards like Sadako does, but she's got her hands the entire time like that, as if she's Kayako as well. And it basically ends with her coming towards the camera. Cut to black, credits.
Yeah, and also I should point out, like when they first get together, it kind of causes this big like feedback explosion that like basically cuts Kaizo in half, which I was a little bummed about. I was like, I was hoping we'd see more of him.
And we actually see a point of view shot when she's coming out the well. We see the point of view of the blind girl and what she sees, and it's like this black evil force like coming from the well. But yeah, her and Suzuka, who are still there, we don't know if they survive. We don't know what happens to them. It's just it's just this new merging of Kayako and Sadako just coming towards them, and that's the end of the movie. And did you watch the end of the credits?
I did. What?
Because there was a little scene at the end.
Yeah, remind me what it was though, because I watched this a little bit ago.
It was just a new version of the tape with, but it was it was the merging of both of them coming through the door. Yeah, and that was it. Yeah. It ends really abruptly. See when it cut to black, I'm like, are you serious? That's the end? The two characters who are left don't try and get away or do anything. It didn't feel like the end. Except for the fact that they do this big thing with the merge. And I guess it's sequel baiting. Like, they want us to think there's going to be a new movie with this merging of these two as the villain.
Were all the people that watched it on the internet, are they okay now, or they're still screwed?
Did anyone watching the internet? We never saw anyone watching the internet. We were just told it was on the internet.
I think she did say because she said something about like she took it down after, but not before it had been like downloaded a bunch of times.
Oh, did she? Already. I don't remember that line. Oh, fair enough.
There's something akin to that. Maybe people didn't watch it. Maybe they, downloaded it or something. But I don't know.
So yeah, it's very a lot of loose ends. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and it just kind of ends. I can't deny it was fun though.
Yeah, definitely. It's big, bombastic, crazy, silly moments, but I had a big grin on my face from start to finish. I had a lot of fun. I definitely can't complain because it'd be. I feel like this is usually your best case scenario with like a versus movie, because like I think versus for the most part is usually like inherently it's gonna be a little silly, or there'll be like a little suspension of disbelief. Like, maybe not in every case, but you know, I feel in order to have like, you know, two different kind of worlds like come together, a lot of times it's probably gonna lean more towards, you know, this type of movie as opposed to, you know, like something a little more serious, which would be interesting to see. But I have no problem with this.
You started that with "I can't complain." I can't say that. I did complain. I complained about a lot of things. There's a lot wrong with this movie. I've went through a lot of it. The changing of the ring stuff, changing of some of the Grudge stuff, loose ends, weird plot points that go nowhere, scenes that are just there to give us an extra kill and stuff like that. It's a weird movie, but like I say, I can't say that I didn't have fun. I was smelling it through a lot of it.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, I've got a feeling my rating will be much lower than yours. I feel like you're going to overshoot your rating a bit here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fairly positive on it. So I'll definitely be more in the higher spectrum. But I mean, I'm still gonna be like, you know, like I think it'd be crazy to, you know, give this movie like a 10 or something. Like, you know, it's certainly, like you said, it's not a good movie. But
well,
yeah,
go on
sometimes.
Then. What's your rating?
Oh, so right up to ratings. All right, I'm gonna give it a 7. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's like a like sevens are usually when I think of stuff that's like, you know, not necessarily like, you know, maybe stuff that's not well made, but stuff that can be like really fun.
I'm going with a 6.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's stupid. It makes not a whole lot of sense. It changes things for seemingly no reason, although there may be legal reasons for it. But I think it's entertaining. I wouldn't put someone off watching it. It's probably it's the best Japanese Ringer Grudge movie since the originals, just purely because it is so much fun and just wacky. But yeah, but don't overhype it for yourself either. I think that's a good bit of advice. Alright, there you go. That's Sadako versus Kayako. We got there in the end. Like I say, we'll have Rings as the next episode next week, which I am not looking forward to. It started off with 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's currently fought its way up to 5%. I'm pretty sure that's lower than the Bye Bye Man. I'm not sure if it is, but either way, I'm not looking forward to it. So probably create a negative video next week.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, that's us. Tim's got no final words to say, so I will just say.
Well, I don't want to say anything about Rings yet. I'm saving it up.
Yeah, because you have to see it a second time.
Yeah, not looking forward to it. I will say this: there's a big billboard on my drive home from work, and on the billboard it just says, "First you watch it, then you die." And I'm not sure if they're talking about like the you know, video in the movie or the movie itself, but
I'm pretty sure they're talking about the video in the movie. They're not threatening to kill the audience, Tim. I'm fairly certain of it.
Well, after you watch the movie, see how you feel when you come out of it.
Okay, thank you very much for watching, guys. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. It helps us out a lot. Let us know what you thought of Sadako vs. Kayako in the comments below. And yeah, keep watching scary movies, and we'll see you next time.